Sometimes you will find these very strange Gamebox emulation machines. Maybe this is one of the most unique ones I've ever seen. This is called the Retro S. It's not the most powerful one, I'm just going to be honest with you. But the thing that this can do and what it is kinda cool. So that is actually I wanted to check it out here on the channel. We have seen all kinds of game boxes, but this complete thing is interesting because in many different ways. But let's do a quick overview of all of the parts, what comes inside of this kit. I think it's kind of cool that this thing comes with its own stand. Yeah, so this is actually a stand that you can just put next to your, let's say, television or monitor, and you can actually put everything in here. So let's start off with the controllers. So you can just put in a controller like this, and I think I understand why they're going to be just delivering us these PlayStation 2 fake controllers. Yeah, we have seen them many times before. But let's check the quality. Is this the same kind of chemical stuff that we have seen before? So far, this seems to be like an overall okay quality controller. I think more like the better controllers that we have seen before, like a very nice D-pad. The D-pad feels quite nice. Having rubberized joysticks. Of course, they're like knockoff controllers for the PlayStation 3 or 2, it depends how you want to look at it. But it's the same stuff. So in here we're having the dongle that will communicate with the controller, on-off switch, and the compartment of the two AAA batteries. So they are like the fake PlayStation 2 controllers, but not the ones you've seen with those game boxes. They're like super low quality. Next up, we're having over here a box, and inside the box we're finding the game system. So the game system is not like, say, the most powerful one out there. I think you should buy something else for that. But I think it's a very cool, unique thing that they created, and I can really appreciate stuff like this. So the Retro S comes with its own tiny cute little display. At the front we're having 3 USB ports, the older kind for like communication with the controllers. At the side we're having the micro SD card, we're having a mini HDMI out and USB at the back, and at the side over here we're having a 5V. And this is actually the thing that's going to be putting over there. But what's more interesting is that we're going to be having 3D glasses, yeah, or at least, yeah, 3D glasses, the old school ones that we have seen, you know, back in the day in cinemas. And you know what the idea, there's even like a 3-dimensional thing going on, but you can stick this thing at the side over here. But how to play the 3D games? Use the included 3D glasses, the Red Cyan glasses, to play Virtual Boy games in 3D. You know, and that is kind of cool. That is something that we're going to be trying out. 3D enabled games are in 3D game list too. So I think that is one of the things that what you're getting with this is an interesting configuration with even not like the most powerful box. I've already mentioned a couple of times, but the way how they present this, I think it's kind of cool, and it gives the thing just something else. You know, it's something else than your basic typical emulate boxes. So well, let's see what's going on with everything, like the power supply. So they went for a very smart option with an internal power on and off switch. It's going to be super convenient because you're going to be plugging this thing in. So we're going to be using an adapter in my case. So let's see what's going on with the power supply. And 2.4, okay, 2.4 amp, I want to say, because this thing is very compact. In here, let's see what we do have more. We're having batteries and everything that we're going to be needing for the controllers, and the Retro S, the business card. Let's see. Thank you for your support. So I'm always complaining at those manuals, but nope, not today, because he is putting a lot of effort inside of this manual, as you can see over here, explaining everything. So the quick start guide, so you need to read it through to see how you're going to be putting it up, how the game dashboard works and everything, buttons, you name it. Like, he does a lot of effort in here. You can just see that he did put all of the overviews of every single controller, because this thing can actually play a lot when it comes to retro gaming. So I'm curious, because this thing does have support for Sega Dreamcast with N64, but yeah, N64, it's going to be an hit or miss like always, because this is not like a super powerful mini PC. And last but not least, we're having over here the HDMI cable that we're going to be needing today. Because, do I have an, let me check, let me double check what kind of connection it was. Oh wait, yeah, no, I have a conversion for that, I have a converter for that. So we're going to be leaving the cable in his packaging, because we're not going to be using them. It's a very long and very nice quality cable. Okay, so that's it, that's the overview. But let's take a close look, let's hook it all up and let's play some games. I just wanted to give you an up close of the, let's say, display that is inside of the thing with a beautiful, let's say, light up logo of the RetroS. So the display itself will give you some information regarding temperatures and also just RetroS logo with how much space is left, and that's not much, like 6% or something like that. So what is also interesting is the inside. So I find it absolutely genius how they make this. So they have like this bracket in the inside that will hold the fan, and in this case they even made a special fan cover. That is something you don't see very often, but in here we're finding the Pi system in the inside. So I don't know if you can actually plug this out. I think you need to shut this thing off, and then I'm going to be actually having the option to get a little bit look in the inside. But let's remove this cable over here, and then we can just slide this out. Let's be very gentle with this. So you can just see that there are LEDs over here for the lights are actually connected all the way to here. So we're getting power over the middle part over here. So that is what is going on, but everything has been put in a bracket. I cannot really easily remove this. So let's just see what's going on when it comes to the display. So the display over here has been connected to also the Pi board. But this seems to be a very secure overall connection when it comes to that. So the Pi cell itself will actually utilize everything when it comes to communication. And of course we're having over here the extra board. That's a special hub, the B hub head for the Raspberry Pi Zero. But the controller setup is super easy. Just plug in the dongle. The control already has been configured. So next up we're going to be plugging this thing in, and we're ready to go. But let's do a chit chat about what you can play. So where this is not like the latest Pi, this thing does have an option to actually play a lot. So if you just get into arcade gaming, or you just want to play some Atari, ColecoVision, and yeah, Dreamcast is going to be hit or miss. He was actually mentioning this honestly in his, like say, manuals. It's kind of cool that he even tried to add those, because Dreamcast is quite demanding, particularly if you're going to be looking into, let's say, the latest Pis. They will have the option to actually play it and sometimes even do an upscaling. But yeah, same goes for N64, but when you're going to be looking into what you can actually play is some Neo Geo Pocket, yes, some MS-DOS, PC Engine, and there are a lot of different stuff that could play. Plays portable, same story. It's quite demanding. I think he added a lot of minis, so let's get into the list. Let's see what's going on. Okay, so every single screenshot and information seems to be here. Let's see, sometimes it's possible that it has been missing out because of the scraping didn't being successful, but you can also scrape it. This is a great example, but you know, that happens. But beside that, there is a lot of stuff you can play with this. So we're going to be scrolling through all kinds of different games for PlayStation, and you're just going to be looking at what this thing is capable of. And of course, one of the cool things is 3D games that we're going to be looking later on. And PlayStation Portable Minis. I think these things are like really cool. So we're going to be playing a couple of those to see what is going on. But if you're going to be booting up a game, the display will also showcase the kind of game you're playing, and in this case it's going to be the arcade 64 Street Detective. It doesn't really fit the full display, but beside that, let's get into some gaming. But if you're going to be playing some arcade, there are so many freaking ways to play now. However, it doesn't matter and doesn't spoil the fun. I am getting my ass kicked here somehow. But the point is that if you're going to be playing some arcade, this can be playable on the device without no problem whatsoever. Of course, there is so much we can play, but of course, arcade is something we can just play nowadays on a cheap stick. So that's something you need to take consideration. So this is thinking more like, what do you want to play? But when it comes to these, let's say, devices that are not actually from China, I've noticed that the configuration has been done so much better in general. So where I've seen like the weirdest problems with simple games that you don't really notice that with this particular product. I'm getting my ass kicked over by the guy. But booting up the next game with the Cyberpolice eSWAT, you can see this logo or this banner looks absolutely great. Okay, so it's going to be different with every single game, but I think this is very cool. Tiny, let's say, display that gives a little bit of an extra value this way. So I mainly actually played the Sega Genesis version of this game. But if you're going to be looking into the overall gameplay here, we're not going to be having any problem. Let's see, also the joystick has been mapped correctly. That guy's like freaking Terminator. Can actually just keep walking. A lot of the same guys with, what is he holding, like a gun or what? So one thing he did implement is more like this CRT filter, and I did notice it with the previous games with the arcade, but what is kind of cool is like it actually bends the screen, so if you're going to be looking at it, this is kind of cool. But no CRT or other filter, and I mean particularly like the scan lines. I just wanted to do the test for the movement. Yeah, that seems to be working fine. I must say it's not the best D-pad I've ever played with when it comes to the controller, but I can actually get my moves out, so that's great. But let's do a little bit of a more gameplay. If you want to play Killer Instinct, that will not run on this, but we can actually play a lot of cool stuff. Oh yeah! Yeah, no, it's just a bezel they're using. Okay. But let's do a little bit of an Atari 2600. That is something I don't really play a lot. Wow, analog stick, woohoo! Extreme sensitive. But I think if you're going to be having a system that has a trackball or something like a trackball controller that will be playing, this will be like a lot of fun. These games are so relaxing. I think the game was actually Alleyway that I played, that was similar to this one on the Game Boy Classic. The Avenger of the Commodore. So I can still remember that a friend of mine had a Commodore back at his home, and I was always like fascinated by this, having these massive floppies that you're going to be putting into the machine. But let's see if we can actually boot it up with a controller. I love how they call this Avenger, but it's just like a Space Invader clone. Oh, seriously, you need to press select. See, that's exactly why I wanted to check out what's going on. Okay, so I'm guessing I need to start here. Can I press play? I have no idea how to start this. Oh wait, play your name. Oh wait, no, I need to shut this off. Can I move? No, I can't move. How does this work? Joypad. Yeah, now I can actually move. Oh man, this is really fun. But you know, for me personally, I have no connection with this. For me, it started all with the NES, where I just started gaming. And when I was actually getting into the Sega Genesis, then I absolutely like went completely like crazy with gaming and everything. But that's something we're going to be getting into with some Sega Genesis, of course. But yeah, Commodore 64, it is possible to play without a keyboard. You can actually press the select on your controller, and this way you can switch. ColecoVision, that is a system I personally never owned, so let's see what's going on with this. Can we actually press it again? Let's see the graphics. ColecoVision. Okay, that doesn't really look that bad when it comes to that. How about the analog? Okay, this works way better with the analog stick. So when it comes to gameplay itself, it works quite well, but I'm quite surprised how good it actually looks, the ColecoVision. Okay. Okay, there we go. I'm on the roll! Losing the ball! No! No, what about ball? Ah, freaking hate this. God. Ah, easy mode. These kind of games never bore me, you know that? Let me know in the comments what kind of games do you love to play on ColecoVision. Tailgater is absolutely one of those games I still love to revisit and play. The unfortunate is that the engine is kind of boring, or at least the way how the game plays, because you always need to open every single chest, and it's not like randomized. So, okay, this particular chest has this key. No, it's all like the last freaking chest has this certain key. So I think there's a little bit of a downside to the game, so you know you need to opening up all freaking thing of them. So no shortcut when it comes to that. And that's a really amazing soundtracks. I love to hear some remix of this. I've played this game so much that I can just instantly remember the soundtracks. Moving on to the Game Boy Advance with no battles enabled. I must say that I really love it. So I'm not the guy who is going to be liking those battles. But performance-wise, there's nothing going on when it comes to a negative, like having screen tearing and all kinds of stuff. Nope. Overall great performance. You know that GBA is actually one of those systems that I actually stopped around that time of handheld gaming, and I can tell you that I missed out on a lot of great titles. Man, GBA is such an interesting platform. Has so many great games. We have the double bubble. Woohoo! Yeah! Speed up! Gotta go fast. So moving on to some 8-bit gaming, and yep, this is going to be absolutely playable. Let's see, let's run. Don't see any screen tearing going on. So playing on these, let's say this retro-ass device has been an overall fun experience. And of course with RetroPie you can just actually enable all kinds of different controllers if you don't want to use the wireless one. But also I don't really notice any input delay whatsoever. First time I booted up this game, man, such a cool soundtrack. And the next one, this version. But let's get into some Desert Strike. You know, if you're going to be looking into all the old games, I think I simply went the Super NES. I think it's such an interesting, let's say, platform. I think still one of my favorite ones with the Sega Genesis. Oh, okay, we're going to be fighting that guy. Come on, the turret fight. Oh. But regarding the list of N64, this is going to be interesting. I think he did a lot of, let's say, looking which one of the games are going to be, or let's say they are playable. So let's look into a couple of them to see what's going on. So let's start off with some F-Zero X. But throughout the gameplay you do notice it's going to be having a little bit of stuttering going on. Here you can actually hear that it struggles big time. But let's get into the gameplay, because sometimes when getting into the gameplay you will see that it actually is playable. But this is going to be the hit or miss situation that we have at N64. Let's see what's going on into the game. And this is what I mean, you can just actually play and enjoy the game. But it's quite insane to see that N64 is a certain way playable on this old Pi version. We do have to slow down. So let's move into some Diddy Kong farting and see what's going on. But the launch games, they were running on native resolution. But yeah, it's actually playable, so that's kind of cool. Woo! There we go. So one of the things I find already interesting that the left joystick that's configured to the controls is very responsive. Well, let's do some random gaming with the PC Engine. Okay, let's see what button I need to actually use. I can see we're having the 6 button. There's a turbo button. Okay, we can actually get into the... this is the 2 button mode and the 6 button. Okay, let's continue. Let's see what's going on. Let's see which button I need to press. There we go. With PlayStation, we're only having the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation Portable and the PlayStation Portable Minis. So I already mentioned the PlayStation Portable is going to be a little bit of a hit or miss with this, but the PlayStation 1 is a system that will run just fine on it. And the overall collection is absolutely nice. Die Hard Trilogy, man, that's such a cool game. Also, all of the music has been implemented in the game so far. That is another thing I've noticed throughout a lot of videos and testing out products, that we had like a lot of struggles with this, but that is what I love about these, let's say, other kind of companies creating these custom devices, that we actually do have the option to just play this. I have everything that we're going to be needing when it comes to background music, etc. Oh, this game is brutal. I do wonder one thing. So this is the PlayStation Portable list, and of course this list is not like big because not everything will run perfectly. So, you know, it's great. This is just how it should be, you know, adding the games that are actually playable. But what I do notice, like, I have PlayStation Portable Minis over here. So having the PlayStation Portable Mini list, but we can also get into self like the list over here, and having the PlayStation Portable Minis. In other words, like, are we having double games? Because that would be absolutely a waste of space. But let's get into the PlayStation Portable. Let's try a game to see how it actually runs. Most of them are like two-dimensional stuff, but let's try something. So one of the other things I also noticed with this particular, let's say, setup is that everything has been carefully like looked into, like what will run on a device like this. And where we like have 0x on the N64, you know, it struggles, but it was still playable. But I think it's going to be the same situation with PlayStation Portable. All of the games have been tested out, but also the configuration of the buttons are great, you know. Everything is like supposed to be. That's one of the things I have noticed a lot of those cheap game sticks do, is that the configuration of the buttons were always freaking messed up. And that is not the case over here. Yeah, so this is great. With PlayStation Portable, yeah, we do have to use the mode button, because otherwise you can get into the menu. We do can do some tweaking if you want to. So let's go into game settings over here. You can see the frame skip has been set to 2 times even. And this way we can just exit the menu and exit the system, the emulator, and go back to the menu itself. Let's try Mini. Zombie races. You know, with the Minis we have like the weirdest things they created for this. But let's do a little bit of free roaming, Dust to Dawn, 666 zombies. What? So let's get into the game and let's see what kind of game this actually is. With different cars. Let's grab the buggy. Oh, we just have a track, or I'm guessing a map that we can use. Oh, this looks hideous. Okay. How do I accelerate? Oh, there we go. What kind of game is this? Oh. And also the Mega Drive is a system that can be played on many cheap game boxes. I think there's even a game stick out there that can actually just play Sega Genesis games. But of course, this is just an absolutely amazing addition. I think it's going to be really interesting if you're going to be looking into the other stuff, because this thing also has Sega CD, Sega 32X. But Sega 32X is a system that we nowadays find more often on those game sticks for like $20–30. So that's kind of cool. So that makes this thing less, let's say, I want to say interesting, but going to be less something that you should actually pick up for this kind of games. I've played this game a couple of times and I'm still figuring out the controls. In the face. So, oh man, this guy goes completely rampage. I got him. Okay, so what is actually cool, so if you're going to be looking into the Sega CD list, here we can actually find a lot of cool things. So let's check out. So the Sega CD is not like having a massive library of games, but there are a lot of hidden gems there, and you can just actually see that so far a lot of very cool games are on here. And of course Final Fight CD and many other ones. And with many classic games like Snatcher. It's such an interesting game. I think I looked into like a full gameplay. I didn't even play fully myself. But one of the best soundtracks ever. It was such an interesting story. But if you just want to play a game on the Sega CD, this would be absolutely one of them. But this is not for everyone. That's the reason why I personally just looked up, let's say, and just where somebody was actually playing it. Because this is personally not the game. Like investigate, talk, and you just need to have these interactions. But every single time you're going to be booting up a game, you will get yourself the Sega CD intro from the Sega CD unit, pressing start, and we'll get into the game itself. I do wonder if you're just going to be booting up some Sonic Mega Mix. Let's see if this is going to be playable, because I have never played it, seen it before, but never played it. Because somehow it always like froze when getting it into, let's say, some emulation, or actually wanted to play it on my hardware. Let's get it up, and let's see if this thing is going to be booting up. No save please, and let's get into the game and let's see what's going on. Okay. Yeah. Oh, there we go. You know, when it comes to these custom Sonic games, you know, we have of course the trilogy on the Sega Genesis, the Sega Sonic CD on the Sega CD. But when you're going to be looking into, let's say, the custom-made games, even one with Metal Sonic, there are so many fan-based games out there that are absolutely worth checking out. Some of them can even bought on a cartridge now, or a CD. So collectible value is not going to have a lot of value when it comes to money, but I think it's going to be absolutely awesome to just check out these games. Woohoo! Moving to the Sega Dreamcast, this is what I mentioned also in the manual. Some games are playable, run choppy, but I must say, like, I just tried some Virtual Fighter. This is quite a demanding game, I've noticed, throughout some testing. But yeah, it seems to be working okay. You do hear some stutters in the intro and some other moments, but when getting actually into the game, it's going to be an overall playable situation. And if you think about the power actually running now, it's kind of nuts that it seems to be running. But let's do another attempt and let's play another game that is maybe less demanding. So let's try another mode and let's do a little bit of Project Justice. You do hear some hiccups here and there. But let's get into the game and let's see how it actually is going to be running. Yeah. So when it comes to Sega Dreamcast, there will be game starters, some are playable. But again, it's already pushing this device to its limit. That was actually what's going on with all of the 8-bit, 16-bit and all the craziness. You know, can so play so much on this. But there is something I noticed that is kind of cool. So we have over here MS-DOS, yep, going back in time, with 29 individual games, and over here having the ports. And ports is also another highlight of the system. So let's get into the MS-DOS and show you what I mean. So in here we're finding all kinds of very cool classics. Jazz the Jackrabbit is one of them. Over here we're having the Doom, even Destruction Derby. That is the one I've never played on the MS-DOS. I actually played it. It's my first game on the first game I actually owned on the PlayStation 1. So there are a couple of, let's say, very cool nostalgic games for me personally. So let's get into Jazz the Jackrabbit. Oh man, Jazz the Jackrabbit. It was actually one of my first games I played on my Windows 95 PC. Yeah, that's actually why this thing is so nostalgia for me. So with MS-DOS, it seems to be just booting up. You don't need to do any weird tinkering. So this is just a plug and play situation, like if you're going to be playing an 8-bit or 16-bit system. Oh, this is such a cool game. But that makes me wonder, so we're having this Just the Jackrabbit game. Should I start rebranking to make you to the main menu? But let's look into Destruction Derby. Okay, that is interesting. So let's boot up into Destruction Derby, because this is a game that I've personally played a lot on the PlayStation. Ha! The hard drive. Oh yeah. But let's get into the game. Let's get into the racing. I don't hear any music, so that's a little bit of a bummer. I think there is no music in this game. So there's nothing going on over here. But I was really curious about this 3-dimensional game, how it performs on this particular Pi model. Okay, we can use the D-pad and the analog stick. Oh, I completely forgot how choppy this game plays. Man, this is just... Okay. Yeah, the controls are quite difficult. Feels quite sluggish. And does it run Doom? Yep, it does run Doom just fine. So this is absolutely cool to just, of course, play Doom the gazillion time on another device. Wow. This is not the best version out there. Looks kind of pixelated. Is there nothing actually we can do with this? Let's see if we can change something out over here. Let's see, where is the button? Display detail level. Oh, potato, high. Sky rendering, full. Sega Saturn, oh, invisible rendering, okay. Show FPS. V-Sync on. Huh. Oh, that looks so much better. So when it comes to playing this is such a fun game, man. I never get bored of Doom. I think on the Sega version, the 32X was graphical wise not as beautiful like this one, but we did have the option to actually play in cooperative link mode. That was kind of cool. So when it comes to the MS-DOS, I'm surprised of what I actually going to be booting up. It seems to be working. I think that is one of those things that is kind of cool. Because if you're going to be looking into like so just cheap game box from AliExpress, I've noticed like a lot of stuff that is, if it's in there, it doesn't even matter, because most of the time it doesn't even boot up. Oh, blood. Beats of Rage, that's kind of weird. But let's move on to something else. Let's take a close look at the ports. We will find a couple of the similar games, but let's see what's going on over here. What kind of stuff do we have? Double Dragon Reloaded Alternative, Final Fight the Last Round Special. Okay. Mortal Kombat 3 The Chosen One. Oh, that's such one of those very strange beat 'em up games. Street of Rage Remake is on this. Oh man, I'm sold. Hey there, the Teenage Mutant Ninja to the rescue. Okay, we've had some really interesting versions. But man, I noticed the game. Street of Rage 2X. What the heck is that? There are some really interesting ones. Street of Rage Remake! Here we go! Go, 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 go! Yeah, if Street of Rage Remake is on this, I'm happy. I don't know which version we're actually going to be having. So, CPU friend. No, it's locked! So we need to unlock everything. I think Street of Rage Remake is one of my favorite Street of Rage to play. Let me show you why. Because you need to play through the game, having a store that we can actually get in, and in here we can just buy stuff. That's absolutely awesome. But let's do a little bit of a gameplay. Also, we have different ways you can actually play. I mean, different routes. It's kind of cool. Later on, having a CPU friend and all kinds of cool things. So let's say over here we're playing the Street of Rage 2 with an amazing soundtrack. And we can just play ourselves some old school, but also improved version. Street of Rage 2X. That is something I've personally never played. And that's one of the fun things of these boxes. You can find the most wicked things. Arcade, normal. Finish the game to unlock. Okay. I thought I would like more characters. That's it. 4 characters like normal. Okay, that's a little bit disappointing. What the heck is going on with this? Ha! Did they put the one up in here? Yep, they also put the one up in the same location. So this is actually like Street of Rage on a higher resolution. And on turbo mode. There we go. And I think they were just using open bore for this, or of course they're also using open bore for this, but I mean particularly when it comes to, let's say, the engine, the same kind of engine but a completely different layout. So we have many projects, and it seems to be that we can even play this with 4 players, so that is kind of cool. That is something we cannot do with a remake. Mortal Kombat 1, okay, so let's see what's going on. Or Mortal Kombat 1, The Chosen One. Or Mortal Kombat The Chosen One, it depends how you want to look at it. Okay, that title looks kind of cool. Start the game, new game. Heroes Crusade, training mode, let's do the Heroes Crusade. Okay, so we actually have like different characters. Let's do... Why is there some guy with a sword in here? Oh, that's the dude from Killer Instinct. They even implemented in story mode. But we can skip it. My lord, I have finished the first part of the spell, thanks to help of Quan Chi. Okay, all kinds of title. What the heck? I can't believe this is happening. Boom! Yeah, so this thing does have like a lot of loading times, and as you can see, here's a quick overview. We have even the characters like Jago from Killer Instinct. So it's not actually Mortal Kombat, it is actually going to be more like a mix of Killer Instinct and Mortal Kombat. Okay, so let's see how the engine is. Man, those stuff. Okay, we can start. Oh, that's Jax. We have almost like unlimited credits. We can play this with... We can play with 3 characters at the same time. Oh, it just say super combo. Oh, and it does seriously every single time it's a super combo. Oh man, this is really... What? I have no idea what just happened. This is really interesting. Yeah, this is a really interesting game. Oh, we even have tutorial, counter knife. Okay, that's cool. So, it is an interesting game. Hyper combo. 3D games. As the manual states, we're having 19 games that are actually made for those glasses. Yep. So we do have actual, let's say, 3-dimensional option inside of it. And I think this is one of the cool selling points this thing actually had. It comes with 2 pair of glasses, and this is going to be the old school way where we're having with these special, let's say, glasses. Like they're actually made out of, let's say, cardboard, so they're like very easy to use. I do wonder if you can get yourself online some better ones, some more like high quality ones. That would be interesting. The downside is that I cannot really show you this, how the 3-dimensional part is, so I will explain and do a little bit of a gameplay together with you. But let's try the Space Invaders, the 3-dimensional one. Let's just do the virtual 3D. And I must say that I really need to get used to this. I also had this one going to the cinemas with the 3D glasses. Oh, this is really weird. This is such an interesting concept. I've been trying a couple of games. But I must say that actually playing this game, this is completely different. So hyper fighting is such a cool game. So this is a completely different way of playing this. So first of all, I need to get used to this. So I need to look at the screen for a couple of seconds to get a little bit adjusted. Because now what you're seeing, and this is quite difficult, I need to explain it actually because you don't see it. Maybe if you're going to be putting on some glasses yourself, you can actually see what's going on over here. But I think it's most interesting and how to explain this is that the depth of the background. If you're going to be, my eye is getting adjusted, so we're actually having 3 layers. We're having over here the characters. The game itself that they implemented in this is just great. I love this game. It's a very good port of the Street Fighter. The music is kind of basic, but you know, the overall gameplay is good. So next up we have the guy with the bicycle. He's driving by. He's actually in the middle lane, and then in the background we're having over there the guy just shouting. And what's even more interesting, that the third layer is the guy over there at the background. So it's kind of cool, and if you're going to be focusing on this, yeah, it's kind of interesting. I thought at first it was 3 lane, but with 4. I don't know if I can actually play this for a very long time. The RetroS gaming console is such an interesting device. I've been using it for hours now, and the temperature is around like 52 Celsius. And so far the manual states it's quite nice. Controller-wise, I must say that I'm flabbergasted about the overall quality, but in particular when it comes to the D-pad functionality. I can actually play fighting games without no problem, and I must say that why this thing, at first I was thinking there's going to be another cheap PlayStation 2 knockoff chemical controller. No, that's not the case. The 3-dimensional games are kind of cool, and that's one of the reasons I actually wanted to check it out. However, if you're going to be looking into 3-dimensional stuff, there are like a handful of games. My personal one is going to be the Street Fighter, but I don't see this. I don't see myself playing this for hours. But this is something completely different with the RetroS. It's such an interesting concept with, let's say, quality controls, a lot of fun and cool gimmicks, and when it comes to the games, I really enjoyed myself today. But if you want to have a powerhouse for N64 emulation and Dreamcast, it is not something you should pick up. But the overall idea is kind of cool, having this custom device with 3D printed base and everything that we're going to be needing for playing a lot of retro games. Thank you all for watching. Let me know in the comments what do you think of something like this. It would be great if you subscribe, hit the little bell. Okay, that means I will see you in the next video.